So is the caste census the political game changer that the Congress hopes it will be? Is a caste census desirable or not in the first instance? Is the caste count divisive, as some call it, or much needed? Joining me now, two special guests. Yogendra Yadav, co-founder Swaraj India, who's been a strong advocate of a caste census, joins me. Anup, Bansal, Director, India Foundation, is a critic of the caste census. Appreciate both of you joining us. I want to come to you, Yogendra Yadav. Do you believe that what we've seen today was an idea whose time has come? Since 1931, we haven't had a proper caste enumeration in this country when it comes to a census?
Rajdeep, what we are witnessing today is a culmination of an idea whose time had come about 30 years ago. We have lived in denial. We have lived in an anomalous position of the kind that you don't see anywhere in the world. You give legal affirmative action on the basis of caste, but you don't enumerate in the census. I mean, I don't know of any single country in the world which does something as weird as that. So we have ended that anomaly. In any case, in order to treat any disease, the first step is test, monitoring. You cannot eliminate caste. You cannot end caste in this country unless you acknowledge that it exists, unless you monitor the inequalities that caste system leads to, unless you then, based on evidence, devise policies that address it. So today is a very major day. It's a historic day. Yes, we always look at all historic decisions based on short-term political calculus, who did this, why, and so on. But in the long run, what stays is the sheer impact of something as major as that. And I think, as you rightly said, Rahul Gandhi and Congress would take the credit, deserve it, because despite all the external and also possibly internal opposition, he stuck to it, forced it. And I think Modi government was really left with no option except to now concede it. So it is a vindication, certainly. And it's a positive development for the country.
You're saying positive development. Before I come to Alok Bansal, just to push you for a moment, you're saying the positive development is finally that we will be, in a sense, able to know how the caste demographics of India are, and therefore can frame policies accordingly. But there will be those who will say this could, once you have a caste census, it could then lead to demands for reservations that will spiral out of control. Rahul Gandhi, for example, today said that 50% can no longer be the cap, as the Supreme Court has enunciated. We need to increase that cap. Will that not create fresh social friction?
Rajdeep, I always find this argument rather funny. This is like saying, let's not count the number of girls in this university, which seems to have increased, but let's not count it, because just in case we count it, there would be demand for more girls' hostels. What would be your response? So what? I mean, those who say, let's not have a blood test, because just in case we discover that the patient is ill, we'll have to give medicine. Just in case we discover it's cancer, we'll have to operate. Yes, of course you'll have to do that. How is that a valid argument? I don't understand that at all. In fact, any sensible person anywhere in the world would say, if you look at any inequality, whether it is based on caste or based on gender, or in some countries based on race, the very first thing that you do sensibly is to record, is to monitor the development, is to map it. And incidentally, there's a huge mistake, Rajdeep, when we think that caste census is only going to give you the number of the population size of each caste. No, that's not the most important thing of caste census. Caste census would give you a detailed breakup of educational, economic, and social profile of each caste at each level, from the country to state, down to taluka, down to every single village, which is exactly the kind of evidence you need. This is exactly the kind of evidence Supreme Court and the Indian judiciary has been demanding over the years. They've always said, yes, you can frame policies, but every policy should be based on evidence. And when someone says, all right, let's gather evidence, everyone jumps and says, no, don't gather evidence. It's a dangerous thing. I find it funny. Shouldn't you find that funny too?
Alok Bansal, do you find it funny too? Since you've opposed the caste census, what's your biggest concern?
See, firstly, I disagree with what Mr. Yadav says. When you're counting women and men are divided biologically. Race also can be divided scientifically. caste is an artificial entity which politicians like Mr. Yadav has reinforced and actually sustained in this country. Today, urban youth does not believe in caste. But when you do a caste census, you force him or her to choose a caste-based identity. Now, this identity, which should have been obliterated, is being reinforced by people who are advocating caste census. And that is a problem. This is similar arguments which were put by Muslim League for having religion in census, and which ultimately led to the division of India. Now, dividing people on the basis of caste. Today, do you think an urban college-going youth believes in caste? No. There are inter-caste marriages taking place. But even when the children of those inter-caste marriages are forced to identify with a caste, you are creating a division. You are creating a division.
But Anup Bansal, if I may intervene, aren't you? I mean, it's a, where are we living? Caste is still a living reality in this country, across the country at every level. I mean, I can also show you classifieds which say wanted for a Kshatriya. No, it's not about my children.
Your children believe in caste? Will you marry them according to caste? No.
Sir, 1.4 billion Indians, if I go through the classifieds, if I look at our politics, if I look at our social organizations, caste is a reality. Go to any part of rural India. Are we telling ourselves that caste identities no longer matter? Be honest with ourselves.
Yeah, let's be honest. Today, urban population almost is 50% of India's population. It's no longer India of the villages where 80% population was in rural. Today, 50% population, bulk of them do not believe in caste. But you are forcing them to identify themselves by caste because of politicians who are actually looking at caste as a vote gathering mechanism. So that is the problem. Tell me, mine, anybody's children, do they believe in caste? Would they marry according to caste? Will Mr. Yadav look for a caste-based girl for his son or a daughter? No. Then why are we insisting on this mechanism which should have actually gone lock, stock and barrel? Now, people who say caste-based identities are good, caste-based discrimination is bad. The fact is, caste system is inherently discriminatory. It is a hierarchical system which creates discrimination. If you have to get rid of it, you cannot identify. And if worst case scenario, if you have decided to go for a caste-based census, give people an option to say they don't believe in caste. Give them no caste as an option, which is not there. Today, government forms ask you for a caste, but don't give you an option to say, I don't have a caste. Why are you not giving that?
Yogendra Yadav, you're hearing this argument that basically it will only institutionalize and consolidate the caste hierarchical system in the country, is the argument being made against the caste census.
Rajdeep, I can't believe I'm hearing such arguments on national television. Let me clarify to Mr. Bansal. It's not merely my son or daughter. I actually happen to be someone who married outside my caste. Both my wife and I decided not to give our children any caste names. So it's not just the youth. You know, there were people before the youth as well, Bansal Saab, who did not believe in caste. And please do not peddle this lie on national television. It will look ridiculous, Bansal Saab, when you say these things, that people don't have an option of saying no caste. Please remember, probably you don't know how census is conducted. When someone comes to your house, please remember, for the last 70 years in independent India, your language and your religion has always been asked to you. And Mr. Bansal, you always have an option to say no religion. You can certainly say that. It's always been the case. Of course, when someone comes to your house to ask your caste, you would always have the option to say no caste. Thank you very much. So let's not spread these very elementary lies. It doesn't look good when we say things of this kind. The important thing, remember, Mr. Bansal, let's not get into these. I mean, let's have a serious argument. If we just start peddling lies, it actually is not a good argument. Census always gives you the option.
Lies, Mr. Yadav, sorry.
You can say atheism is my religion. You can say Marxism is my religion. You can say whatever, India is my religion. You always have that option, and the option has been exercised. Obviously, the same option will be exercised once caste census takes place. Obviously, when they come to speak to my children will say, well, we do not have a caste. My father belongs to one caste. My mother belongs to another caste. And on that basis, my children will not be entitled to making any caste-based claims. That's all. So one, let's get rid of that. Number two, I'm very happy to discover that people like me have the power of inventing caste in this country, which did not obviously exist in the past or has probably disappeared. Mr. Bansal, all I can say is, please welcome to this country. Please spend a week in urban India in the bastis of urban India, in ordinary households, and in the middle class colonies of Delhi. I challenge you, Mr. Bansal. Please let us take a bet today on national television. Come to any place where marriages are being negotiated. Yes, there are children who marry outside their caste. And yes, I hope my children, as and when they decide, if they do, won't take any of those castes. But let us not forget, Mr. Bansal, we live in a society where caste not only determines your life chances, your educational prospects, your career opportunities, it in about 75-80% cases also determines your life partner. And finally, Mr. Bansal, suppose that were not to be the case. Let us imagine that in this country, caste has ceased to matter. Your educational opportunities, your life chances have nothing to do with caste. In that case, Mr. Bansal, you should welcome the caste census, because caste census will provide you, if you are true and if you are honest to your belief, caste census will provide the ultimate truth. If you are right, you will get the ultimate evidence to prove yourself. And if I'm right, I will get the evidence. So why don't we go for tests? Why are we disputing? We can debate about medicine. Why are we debating about blood tests? Why are we debating X-ray?
No, but let Mr. Bansal intervene. I think the argument made by those who are advocating the caste census, Mr. Bansal, is that why run away from the reality of this country? In fact, we have reservations at the moment, often based on a 1931 census. Let it be on what is done in 2025, so there is hard evidence on the basis of which policy interventions take place.
See, Rajdeep, let me come to what Mr. Yadav said. Firstly, the problem discussing with politicians is they actually peddle lies in a very soft manner. I did not say that you invented caste. I only said you are reinforcing caste by doing a caste-based census. I never said that. Secondly, in the census, you have an option for saying no religion. You don't have an option for saying no language. Please understand. It's your presumption that when there will be a caste-based census, there will be no column for no caste. Today, in government jobs, there are so many places where you have to caste. You cannot say no caste. Please understand. There is a problem. So there is a problem. Today, according to, at least I know, all my friends, all my colleagues, can get married with their children are getting married outside caste. The point is that the urban youth is moving away from caste-based identity. But by bringing in this caste-based census, you are actually forcing them to identify themselves with a particular caste. You are seeing when children of mixed marriages are born, they are invariably forced to take a caste sooner or later. You can see politicians. You can see politicians who are born of mixed marriages. Their son Chirag Paswan is identifying himself with the caste. If your logic was okay, I would have accepted it. Doesn't happen. Please understand.
But Mr. Bansal, even in the absence of a caste census, they are doing it. You know, at least the caste census will provide some scientific basis for policy interventions like reservations. I mean, when communities demand reservations without evidence. So you're saying it will exacerbate it.
Accentuate this problem. And even if you do a census, at least don't release the report. At least have the reports kept under guard. Because there is no end to division. Today you can division between 10 castes. Tomorrow people would want to be divided into 100 castes. There are Brahmins who have got different gradations. There are actually Kshatriyas, Vaishyas. They have so many subgradations. There is no end to division. You can keep dividing the people and there will be no end to it.
Can I therefore ask you, Yogendra Yadav, in conclusion, one of the fears is, and I come back to this, that let's assume, yes, we should have a caste census because you need a scientific enumeration of castes done scientifically, and I emphasize the word scientifically. However, once it's done, there will be competing demands from different caste groups to increase the reservation pie. And therefore, that will take reservations spiraling out of control. They will be used, as they have by some, as a political weapon. Why, therefore, open up the bottle, the caste bottle, in a way that you will increase friction in society? I come back to it. That is the principal argument being made.
Rajdeep, I want to understand where that principal argument is coming from. To go back to that example of university.
It's coming from Yogendra Yadav, state after state, where reservations are being pushed well over 60%, 70% and beyond.
Rajdeep, so my question is that clearly is coming from someone who does not belong to the category called SC, ST or OBC. that is clearly less than 20% of India's population. And every single evidence that we have about India is that this category, which is less than 20% of our population, happens to occupy about 2/3 or 3/4 of every single position of power in this country, except political power and except in those cases where there are formal reservations. So, number one, much of this fear is coming from a very privileged section of society. Clearly, Rajdeep, this cannot be the fear of those who have been kept away from education, those who have been denied opportunity in this country systematically. And just to go back to that question, Rajdeep, if you say, oh my God, if we count girls, we'll have to provide more hostels. Well, the answer is yes, sir, then provide more hostels. All this apprehension comes from those. And that's my point, Rajdeep. Actually, everyone knows what the caste census would reveal. We are opposing blood tests because we know what the blood test would reveal. Everyone knows that the number of OBCs in this country would be substantially higher than their quota or than their job quota. Everyone knows that once the census figures come, the educational and economic profile of OBCs in this country, of the SC and ST, will turn out to be dramatically worse than what the upper caste have, the leading Agada caste have in this country. Mr. Bansal knows it. There is a very sharp division in this country. The trouble is we don't want to acknowledge it. Once that comes, yes, we'll have to take remedial action. Yes, reservation can be one of those remedial actions. Yes, 50% ceiling will have to be abrogated. But yes, many other steps will also have to be taken to say, let us not open our eyes to inequalities, lest we need to do something about it, is a very, very poor argument.
Mr. Bansal, since that was a long comment given by Yogendra Yadav, you deserve a 30-second response. Do you see this as a political game changer?
It is actually no political game changer. It is actually a very, very divisive mood. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, who was not from the privileged society, wanted a casteless society. This is a step which actually accentuates caste. It does not go towards obliteration of caste. The aim of the society should be obliteration of caste. People like Mr. Yadav wants to perpetuate caste. That's the problem. He is a politician and politicians want to perpetuate caste. That's the problem. Today, the youth of this country do not want caste. They want to create a casteless society, which people like him are preventing it from being created.
Let me leave it there. I've heard two very clear, sharp viewpoints, and that's always good to hear, because I think this is an issue where there are two clear viewpoints emerging. But interestingly, politicians are all taking credit for it. Every political party. Rahul Gandhi is taking credit, saying he's the one who pushed it for the last couple of years. Every Modi government minister is now calling it a historic decision taken by the Prime Minister. So whether you and I don't believe in the caste identity, our politicians certainly do. And that perhaps reflects the reality on the ground. Yogendra Yadav, Mr. Bansal, thank you so much for joining me here on the show tonight.